everybody. Welcome on behalf of the Chandigarh Lalit Kala Akademi to an exploration of the world of sculpture through a lecture and slideshow presentation by the eminent UK-based artist Sardar Avtarjeet Dhanjal. The NRI is a familiar figure for us. We are also familiar with the feeling spaces often have to be hacked of cultural ideas, attitudes and histories. Avtarjeet Dhanjal is one such artist whose kinetic sculptures not images and sensations of their time, but also become a medium to explore and articulate the human condition at an atavistic and universal level. His sculptures are intensely sensitive to touch and attain mythical dimensions, carrying within them the seed of his mother culture, even as he traverses the lands and cultures of the West. Dhanjal was born in a village in Punjab, where thrived an industry of folk paintings, shrine furniture, and devotional images. He imbibed his father's skills in carpentry and learned to make sign paintings and commemorative figures by observing other village craftsmen. He also read voraciously. A book on modern French painting opened new vistas beyond the confines of his rural existence. He joined the College of Art here in Chandigarh and discovered sculpture. His first foray, a delicate female form that he carved out of a block of wood, was purchased by this museum. The unexpected accolade encouraged Dhanjal to explore Indian sculptures and simultaneously evolve his own dialect of form, which culminated in a body of non-figurative kinetic experiments. But then, as restless artists are wont to do, he left for East Africa, sketching and selling his way in search of fresh horizons. Teaching assignments, a one-man show at London's Woodstock Gallery, a post-graduation course in sculpture at the St. Martin's School of Art dotted his career chart. Sardar Dhanjal's sculptures received major critical attention in the 1989 Hayward Gallery's Telling of the Other Story. His art blossomed in a series of commissions for environmental sculptures in Slovenia, South Wales, Wolverhampton and Cardiff. These permanent installations consist of sculptural objects that take such forms as stools, benches, steps, wells, etc. Dhanjal says that he derives his dynamics for his park installations from observing children at play in these places and by writing poems which attune him with the spirit particular to their location. We, the viewers, complement and complete the sculptural process by our orchestrated movements. Each installation invites a performance from us, whether it is to light a candle or walk on paving stones. Time comes to a standstill. The sweetness and wonderment inside the kernel of every minute are set free, as in children's play. Ladies and gentlemen, I invite you to experience this sweetness and wonder today through the magic of Sardar Avtarjeet Dhanjal's art.
Friends, art students especially, and students of sculpture. My association with Mr. Avtarjeet Dhanjal goes back to almost 30 years when I was a student of this College of Art. He was introduced to me by my teacher, Mr. Govt, who unfortunately is not among us today due to some tragedy at his home. He was his class fellow. Ever since I met him, I have been discovering and rediscovering his various aspects, be it his personality, be it his work, be it his enthusiastic approach towards his own land, people, students. He has been a traveler. As I have known and I've heard about him and read about him, I've had the opportunity of having a look at his work at various places, wherever it is installed, be it in Wales, in Birmingham and other areas, and in this museum also. Unfortunately, there was a sculpture outside this museum which could not withstand the vagaries of the weather, and that was a sculpture which he created during his student days. It is not there with us. There are other sculptures which are in the collection of this museum. Apart from being a wonderful, sculptor who's been able to express his thoughts and ideas and reflections on the society, through his work, he is also a very generous person, a very connected person. He has always been thinking about his motherland. He has always been instrumental in, trying to find ways to promote students, to give them opportunities of exploring the possibilities in the field of art. One of such explorations was cultural exchange, which he inspired, and he was executing it also between England and Punjab, a rural county in England called Shropshire and Punjab. Because of that, for almost 7 to 8 years, 10 to 15 students and artists and art students and art teachers were coming and going back and forth between India and England, and all on the expenses of the English government, British government. And that exchange really benefited a lot of us, and I'm one of those. And there is Gurcharan Channi. He was also one of the very first who was invited during that exchange, and there are many others. Siddharth is one of them, who now is very well known in the field of painting. He's also been donating to his school whenever he comes in his village, and he's been instrumental in providing support for educating young boys and girls in his own way. I really admire him, appreciate him, and thank him that he's amongst us today, although he's been coming almost every year. He's been one of those 35 sculptors selected by the Welsh Arts Trust way back in 1983 out of the whole of Great Britain, in which the names, when we look at them, those who were represented were Henry Moore, Barbara Hepworth. It's not a small or mean achievement. We should really admire him, admire his work, and also give him a big clap for that kind of an achievement. I wouldn't be long between you and him. I welcome him again and welcome you all again. One thing more, there is a book which is written on Mr. Avtarjeet Dhanjal. It's a book which came out a long time back, but he's very generous. He has donated all the copies which were left with him today, 5 copies, and he can sell them, and the money goes to the kitty of the Chandigarh Lalit Kala Akademi. So please buy that book if you like it. It's priced at 1,000 rupee a book. He's been very generous. That the kind of humble fee which we pay to our guest speakers, he has donated that to us too. And he has not charged us any traveling or any other expenses. Although the Academy is not very poor, it is neither rich. All these little donations or helps us do some more programs. Thank you so much, Dhanjal Sahab. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you.
I remember a small thing that when the Roman generals came back from their expeditions, and there used to be big celebrations, there was always a small slave sitting in the theater telling all the time in their ear that what you see is momentary. Don't be too proud of it, of your achievements. So I do remember that the honor that you're giving me is great, wonderful, but I'm still your friend. The subject what we want to talk today, I chose, is beyond the object. But before I can talk about that, we need to talk a little bit more. There's one thing which I'd like to share with you, that it's nearly 40 years, next year it will be 40 years when I left India. And in 4 decades, one could boast about one's achievements, or I would rather talk about my realizations. Because realizations are far more valuable to me than the achievements. So in that way, that's why I chose the subject beyond the object, although I need to define the object. For that reason, I'll show you some of the work which I did when almost until about 1997, when the International Institute of Visual Arts in London celebrated my 25 years work, and they organized a big show and the publication Ivan mentioned. So until then, I was following the usual steps to create objects, and then there was different journey started. The reason for that was that what I realized that most of the artists sometimes they wait all their life to be at that point where a major institution like international institution celebrated them. Then I said to myself, after that, I had nothing more to achieve in a way, because I felt so content. And it came to a point, I wrote to the institute, I said, the only material thing I have got is my house, which I'll donate to the institute when I don't need it anymore. So I wanted to be absolutely free from those material objects, the material ownership. Let's go back actually to what we're talking about. In the man's history, at one time, when man discovered the cereals and started to settle down in small settlements, until then there was no concept of ownership of any objects or any space. The man was wanderer, gatherer. At that very moment, when they started to plant the cereals, and they had to wait there until the cereals crop was ready, and they started to build small settlements. And when they built the small settlements, small cottages, small houses, whatever shape it was, it depends on various countries and climatic conditions. But then the space within the house, within their living space, became their space. The crop they sown became their crop, and they could call it my crop or my house. Before that, the my word didn't exist in the human history. So, until we call something mine, the object is not an object. Let's say, for example, you go to the hillside, there are millions stones sitting there. Until you pick up stone, put in your pocket, say this is mine, that stone is not an object. It becomes an object the moment a human being owns it. So that's why I want to connect that the sense of ownership, the idea of ownership, and the object. Why I actually connected these two things together. Now, since then, man started to own the objects and the space. Throughout the history, objects were used for various things. It became a trading object, trading commodity, and then the artist started to produce some objects, and other objects were manufactured and they were sold. People started to make them, trade them. So the object, the word of object was initiated from that moment in history. But at the same time, what I also discovered, the human being, is that if you don't own the subject, if you don't put a value to it, it becomes something else. There's a very good example, the paintings in Ajanta and Ellora. Nobody owned them. They were never really considered as objects. They were beyond the object. I want to clarify that they were beyond the object. And why? Because they were not saleable commodity. And they also were not something which somebody could carry them around and take them away. This very idea of saleable commodity, like when the picture was framed, very European idea, or the sculpture was put on a pedestal, that it would be transported and sold and bought. Until then, the art in India especially, or I would say probably all over the world, was not considered as an object. So, but we lived in time in history when object became a predominant commodity to deal with, to own, to share, to sell, to buy. Now, I will give you a few examples of that work which I did until I believed in creative objects. So if we look at the works, and you will see what I mean by objects, then slowly I started to move creative objects, which were actually the value of those objects was not really in the objects themselves, but the environment they created around them. The value was in that. So I started to feel there's something beyond the object. And then at the moment when I actually surpassed that, I'll take you through some of the images which I'm going to show you, so that you could see what I mean through the words and how I implemented them through the images, to the objects. Once I moved from here, from India to Britain, I was called completely, always in that context, that what the new age, the technology is doing to culture and to nature. So this was, some of the works were done in that series, but still they were objects which could be actually transported, moved, and all that. But let's go next image. There are a few images like that. That's also from the same series, where technology is slowly creeping over a natural piece of stone. Yes, that was one of the commissions came out of this idea. It is outside the town hall in Banbury, in Oxfordshire, where again a large rock is enclosed by the aluminium sections, and that was again my idea, that how one could actually create a balance between the nature and the technology. At the same time, one could say between the culture and technology. So these were my ideas at that time, which I followed. And you know, the thoughts changed, but at the same time I started to feel that I was actually not really focusing on the object, but there was the environment that created around, the shadows it created on the ground. It fitted into that space, which could not be moved. So it was not an object which could be transported, sold. So that's where I started to discover that there's something beyond actually the object which I'm creating. Next one, please. This was another commission that I had in 1985. It was to create a space for small miniature concerts and things in the park in Wolverhampton, and where again I was actually looking at not really the material object which it was, but I was actually looking at how people could actually walk around through this, share the space. It's not that very clear. Maybe another image will show it a bit better how it's placed in the park. There's it's an aerial photograph which is not probably that very clear, but that's the hand where you can see it's in the park where it is, the piece which was called Dustle Hand, that very piece. Now you will see. My idea was that time that there were two artists, and one to be in that space, which is circular space. One need to walk through those two arches. There was about 10-meter long walk through that, and so that before one enters that, it's very much like what we use in the Hindu temples, where sometimes you walk into a narrow door and you ring the bell, create a sound before you walk in. Because what happens when you're on the street, you are immersed into your mundane thoughts, and you wanted to create the change. so that you could face to be within the temple. So it was very much similar kind of idea that I used here to create small doorways through which you walk before you enter the space. So it makes the space inside those seats. It's a sacred space. So I started to discover that how one could change the space by actually creating a kind of ritual that you walk through, and then you actually use the space. Thank you. Next one. Next one. This was a commission which I did in 1989 in Birmingham, which again came very much, this was more like a political or social comment, because Mrs. Thatcher had been in power for 10 years, and people start to feel that she has eroded all the social, cultural values within the society. So I created this kind of, I call it eroded pyramid. It was a girl who is standing there looking at the eroded pyramid, saying at one time she used to play on this pyramid, but now only small parts of it left. It has been eroded. It was my kind of social comment on that situation. Thank you. Next one. Then I also explored in a larger commission in Cardiff. It was 9-acre park. I was commissioned, actually I was part of the design team really, not only commissioned by the sculptor, but I was part of the design in the park. In that one, I created a lot of different kind of objects and images they were dotted around in the space. So that it's not only one object which is actually placed there. There were, I think, almost about 30 or 40 objects were placed there. So that the whole space is transformed into work of art. So that was my idea. So you will see probably some other images from the park, maybe not. Let's see. This is one of the images. These are certain markings, the orientation within the park, and certain places to sit, and certain places to sit for one person, for contemplation, certain places to sit for people together. Because I was looking at the spaces, I said, when do the people go to park? Either they go for solace, to be by themselves, or sometimes they go there to be with somebody, or sometimes they come there to celebrate together an event. So I was getting those kind of needs. At the same time, I was also creating the works which will give them something more than just the seats. It is something more than that. So I started to discover that there is something beyond those objects which I placed them. They create, the objects together create something, an awe or a mystery, something like that, which I started to discover through those works. Thank you. This is a commission which I did in Coventry. And this is again, if you go to the next image, please, and I'll show the location. It's almost very much in the city. There's a canal going by, and I had this idea that canal, the water is a life-giving entity, which reminded me of a part or a small point from one of my friend's book, Nirmal Apan, which says, the traveler asked the stream, saying, "Mother, tell me, how do you keep yourself fresh all the time?" Now, he asked, "Mother, how old are you?" And the stream answers that each drop of mine is as fresh as a dewdrop every day. That's how I keep generating life around on my path. So, from that very idea, I created that piece. We'll go back one step. Yeah.
So that's where it was. There were two those vertical stones. They have got the image of the traveler, and there was a kind of footpath which goes around, and there are several seats on the side and in the front, and the stream is actually in front of that, so you couldn't see the stream here. So those were the things which were happening in my thinking, that the work needs to be part of the environment. At the same time, it needs to give something to people which is beyond actually its own objectivity, its own itself. So that's where I started to actually feel the need that there is something beyond those objects which I have been creating. Next one. Yes. Now I come to one of my series of works, which one could call it installations. They were actually really my kind of journey towards creating not the objects, because these were the installations. They could not be sold, they couldn't be kept permanently anywhere, but they were the process of creating those and enjoying the process. That became more important. So in the very beginning, I was in 1982, yes, I was invited to do some work for a museum in Slovenia, which was called Yugoslavia at that time. We were 6 sculptors invited by the museum who were working together. And one day at the weekend, they took us to the beach by the sea. And they said, would you do something in the sand for one day? That was a wonderful opportunity for me, first time, to actually go beyond my usual materials. So I said, that's wonderful. So I looked around, I said, yes, these people has been traveling, all those travelers, those who come to the beach, they go from one beach to other beach, and that's their rhythm of life. So what they're looking for. So I started to think that. So these 5 pyramids actually is more like, and if you see their footprints starting from this end of a child, but they keep on increasing the size. And by the time they go almost to the 3rd pyramid, they become the full footprints of a grown-up person. And after that, they started to dwindle, and it's like a journey of a person over 5 pyramids. So it's very much like a symbol of journey of life. So I started to explore those ideas through my work, more than actually creating an object which I could take to the gallery and put a price into it. In 1985, I was also invited to take part in the St. Louis Arts Festival in America. So what I did was, I cast myself with the help of a candle factory. Large candles, they were about 2-foot diameter candles. And I floated them in the lake in front of the museum. And I lit them at night. So this picture is while we were actually planting those candles in the lake. Next one, please. Yes. In the evening, when we lit them, they created about 3-4 feet of flame, and they were again reflected in the water. And it was a kind of experience which generated its own other activities. People came with the music, people started dance there, they started to listen to the music. So there are a lot of things start to happen once this was created. I started to explore this idea of actually creating installations which are not longer lasting. They're just only momentary. Some lasted for an hour, some lasted a few hours, some lasted maybe a day, so some lasted only a few minutes. So it was sharing my experience with the others. Let's go to the next one. This is another installation in an old abbey, which has been ruins of an abbey. not too far from where I live, in Shropshire. What I found when the English Heritage asked me to look into some of their buildings and see if their buildings, the old buildings, inspire me to something, to create something for the spaces. So when I actually looked around those, and I selected one of these places, and it was a kind of way, again, a journey. Because in this one, what happens, there are stepping stones, and through them, there's a bright yellow line, and there are several candles. There are about 50 candles, I think, on the way. They're lit. So it's created kind of line through the space. And it was the kind of thing which needed in that ruins something which would actually be more kind of, you could say, yes, there's one line I can follow, because the rest, everything was, some parts were falling down, some parts were actually standing erect. So there was all kind of asymmetry, where only one line drawing, the one line created, given a sense of kind of stability in the whole space. So that was the idea which I explored in this installation. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Yes. I think probably I should also say, sometimes what I do is, when a commission comes in, I write something, some ideas. Sometimes it turns out into poem, sometimes prose, and so that's how, before I actually make the work, because it helps me to clarify my ideas. This was a place, a park in London, West London, where I was looking around, because normally in all the commissions, the commissioners don't give me any prescription or anything, because I don't take that. They always allow me to go visit the place, feel the space, and then present my idea, what I would like to do there, what is the best for that space. So it was park where that day, it was nice, early morning I was there, when the birds were singing, and I said, yes, that's a good idea. So I wrote a short poem, which I don't remember exactly the words, but it started like this. When the birds were hungry, they asked their friend, the wind, to get them some water. The wind went to the sea and asked for water. And sea gave the water, wind brought it to this place into form of rain. And the birds had the water, and it happened every time, again and again, again and again, filled with the rainwater, again and again. Thank you. So it was my idea of the continuity of life, which I started to explore. So the poem and the bowl, big bowl, gave me the focus to actually present something to the public, just a kind of continuity. Thank you. This is another series of works which I started in 1985, almost the same kind of time, which actually continued using the idea of the candles, because candles were something from my childhood. They were always exciting. Let me go back to the situation, the time when I was growing up. There was no electricity, obviously, in the village. Even I remember first time seeing the radio there, somebody brought this amplifier, and one morning I woke up and I heard the music, loud music, and I was sleeping on the roof terrace, and I immediately ran to my uncle's house, which is the third house over the roof, and because he had a gramophone, and I thought he started to play very early. So when I went there, I couldn't find it. Somebody told me, it's there, next house, next house. I kept running, and I finally discovered where this sound was coming from. For me, it was big excitement, running between the speakers and the machine and all this, discovering how does it make such a big sound. So I remember those kind of moments in my childhood. So the light was also something very scarce, because the darkness, sometimes I still feel, it used to be so dense. You had to almost wade through it. You almost, it was so. And small light, either it was in the fireplace, in your kitchen, mother's kitchen, or somewhere else, or people sitting around the bonfire. And those were the very magical moments. So when I went first time in 1983 to Wales, I was commissioned to do some work there, and I wanted to discover some local material. Wales is full of slate, because it's actually, the whole Wales, actually the land is slate. So I went to one of the quarries of slate, when I saw millions of tons of slate all spread around you. You are simply like a moon, over the moon or somewhere else, another land. And that was the kind of idea, gave me the feeling, yes, it's very much, the darkness is very much like my village. So I said, okay, I'll take some piece of slate and I will actually light some candles in it. So it was the idea of the darkness and the candles, the light. So which also continued later on through my other ways, because I will talk about it, but how I use the light after that. So this is a series of works which I did using the candles. Next image, please. This is a piece from the series. Next one. This is an image which, the piece which I did. It was very much like I started to explore this, because when I saw this rock, slate, I normally do very little to them, because what I did in this one, because I felt they were like a very high, kind of large rocks, or mountain-like. So I said I need to discover this, how I can get to the top, and I started to carve those little steps on one side, and on the top I lit those 5 candles. They are actually drilled the holes in it, the candles are inset, so that they're always there when people doesn't place them just by themselves. So this is kind of work which started to grow out of my exploring the idea of the light and the darkness. Thank you. Next one. Then I also used water, part of that slate, and this is a piece which is in the Bradford Museum, where the photographer, when he took the photograph, he put the light in such a way that you could see the circle on the wall, reflected on the wall. So it's not, although you couldn't feel the water there, so there's something, I wish the photograph was slightly better to give you the feeling. And also, another thing what I discovered, although this slate is absolutely dark graphite gray, but still in the photograph, because in the black, dark and light, it becomes very light, but it's solid, very heavy material. The slate is not actually really so heavy. The 1 feet by 1 feet or 1 feet cube, it weighs about 80 kilos. So it's that dense material, and like this piece is almost like 2.5 tons piece. So it creates its own kind of technical requirements, how to handle this, and how to actually take it to the museum, how to actually install it, all those things. But that's not the thing which I want to talk today, because it's not the technical achievement, it's the idea, the very idea, how this whole thing with the water, what kind of environment, what can I see, get out of this? Because for me, what I see, when I see the water in that dark slate, it reminded me in my grandmother's house, there was very, very small and deep well. And when we used to look into that, it used to do something within us. It was so awe-inspiring that I wanted to sometimes want to feel that experience again. Because those are the things which sometimes come to you. Let me give you an example. When I was once traveling in Spain,
near Barcelona, about 35 miles. There's a place called Montserrat. And I visited the place with a friend. These mountains, actually they are solid, single piece rocks, some of them. They are high, but they are not made of rock. They are actually whole rounded kind of rocks. There's that kind of thing. It was such a sight. It was amazing. You just feel, my God, you know, where you are, because you are very tiny as compared to, you know, just huge rocks. And one of the rocks which was fairly flat, and there were some other rocks near it. So I managed to climb from, you know, onto this low, flat lying rock with his friend. When I sat down in the middle of that, on the top, what happened? The whole world, the man-made world, disappeared, and I was just under the blue sky, just by myself. It was such an experience which always stayed with me. So this kind of experience, either when you're sleeping on your roof terrace in the village, when you are all the sky is full of stars, that kind of experience, they stay with you. They touch you very deeply. And they slowly keep coming back to you when you're actually trying to, you know, go into that certain kind of environment or certain kind of situation. All of a sudden, something pops up. And that gives you that inkling where to go. So, or what to create. So it's always, my work is never really intellectualized in such a way. I always expressed it, dealt with it very directly, as a simple man from a village who will just go and go that he's in a totally different environment, different circumstances, and something within you tells you what to do next. That very thing I carried with me. I remember one evening I was a guest of speaker at the Urban Design Group, which all the learners, top planners and architects were sitting there. And I said to them, I come here in front of you, what can I give you? I related them my first experience when I went to Delhi. I got off this station, Sabji Mandi, and I came to the big road. First time in my life, I saw a road very wide, with a divider in the middle, half traffic going this way, half going this way. And I was standing there being amazed. I said, what a wonderful idea somebody had. Because near my village, the town where the road was, in the ground, it was narrow, and all the rickshaws, tangas, everything, cycles, they were all hitting each other, and all the chaotic. And first time I saw that this traffic could be actually, you know, organized, that going one way and the other way going the other side. So this was such an experience. I still remember that. And I said to these planners, I said, look, I started there when I was 16. First time I saw this wide road. I started on that road. What can I give you today? You have all the, you know, brains, the best brains in London. But still, I use the same thing, that I let something inside me to guide me. That very thing which throughout all our holy books, all our saints, all those people, they have been talking about, that there is something inside you that will actually take you beyond all the difficulties, So I always, when I stood there, always, anywhere in a situation, and I always had to feel something from within me. Because life has been very generous with me. I say generous because where I started and how far it took me to stand sometimes in international gatherings and still able to give them something which they would take home. My talks were never really that kind of intellectuals as sometimes the Europeans do or some other scholars do. I'm not a scholar. Because the difference between, for me, the scholars read, study everything what is available to them, written material, but artist goes beyond that. Artist feels the unwritten words. So that's what I
And when I go places like this, I was invited to give a series of talks at University of Sao Paulo, Brazil. It was another part of the world, absolutely, totally other side of the world from India. And I was amazed at the situation, what right I have got to be here. Why should they spend the money to bring me here? I remember when I joined St. Martin's School of Art in London, one of our lecturers, every week he used to take our seminar. One day he came, he gave 1.5 hours at the paper. And the paper setting was sculpture as a thing. He talked about thinginess of sculpture for 1.5 hours. And I was totally amazed. I said, my God, how you could build this? And after 2 or 3 his seminars, I said to him one day, I said, Mr. Tucker, I'm lost. He said, tell me what's. I said, when I'm listening to you, I feel I'm following your argument. When I stand up, go home, there's nothing left in my pocket to take home. I'm empty. I said, no, listen, completely forget what you talked about. And I said, in India, we teach others, telling them a little story, and which the fact that the lesson you want to give or a truth that you want to express, it comes out like a shining pearl on your hand. You can almost see it. Because some of the stories, Indian stories, they give you the idea, tell you the core of the story in such a way, it comes out like a pearl on your hand. He said, yes, you're after pearls of wisdom, but here in Europe, we follow the logic. We build the whole argument on the basis of logic, not on wisdom. So my talks or my conversation, I rather call it conversation, is never really based on that kind of logic, which I can only construct an argument, but at the end, there's nothing more than that. So it's the same thing about my works. The objects, they are objects, but I'm looking for something beyond that. So this very event in 1997, when the International Institute celebrated my work, it just brought me to that realization. I said, I need to stop. I can't go on like this. Because I reached a point, like there was a sculpture I showed you in Coventry. It was a kind of, I reached a situation where they wrote me a letter, the commissioner of the city. They said, would you put forward a proposal? We'll pay you for putting forward a proposal. And I was coming to India for 4 weeks. And I said to them, look, I'm going to India. When I come back, I'll look at this. Saying, I'll submit a proposal. So when I went back, I read the letter properly. They said to me, we've got £5,000 for this project. And I said to them, sorry, I really don't do anything for that kind of money, because I don't like to deal with money a lot. I take 1 or 2 commissions, maximum 2 in a year. And I need all my year's money, my bread, from those 1 commission or 2 commissions. So I'm not into retail kind of dealing. So I said, sorry, I can't do anything for £5,000. They said, okay, give us a few days. Next week they came back, they said, we've got £10,000. And I said, okay, I'll give you something, but not of your choice. I'll create something which is, I could do with that money. And then they said, give us another couple of weeks. I said, okay. And then they came with £35,000. They said, I said, yes, now it's enough for me. It gives me a space to think, to feel the place where I'm going to create something. It gives me the time to think, reflect, and read, so that it gives me all that time. Only then I could create something. And I tell them, if I do 10 commissions in a year, there will be nothing new, there will be nothing fresh in those works. I will be just producing like a shoemaker who's making, kind of 20 shoes a month. I don't want to be like that. So when I reached that point, when people started to give me the money which I asked, that was end of my taking for the commissions. I said, no, I'm sorry, it's not a challenge anymore. And I stopped taking commissions. And then next thing happened, this exhibition. Then it put me totally in a different frame of mind. I said, okay, I've got one thing which is holding me here, is my house. I offered to the institute. I said, look, I'm happy to donate this house to the institute, and I'd like to wander, just carry my one bag with me, and I'll work in the wood. And that was a kind of realization which I felt at that very moment. Maybe how we're doing the time here. Okay, I will finish with. Is the house still there up there? The house is still there. Okay, I'll come back to that. Just let me tell one little story so that this. It was a Russian play. In that play, a woman sitting by herself on one table, and this man walks in, and he goes to this woman. He says, I'm hungry, can you buy me milk? This woman looks at the man. He didn't look poor, he didn't look alcoholic or somebody. And she said, you don't look like you don't have any money, but how come you don't have the money for your meal? And he said, well, I never feel the need to carry any money. And she thought, this interesting man. She said, okay, sit down. She ordered 2 meals. And she said, what do you do? He said, I'm a traveler. Okay. How do you travel when you don't have the money? Or what for you travel? He said, he found that in this world, there are so many people. Those are basically very wonderful people, very fine people. But they are caught in circumstances where they even themselves forget that they are good people. Even people around them, they all misunderstand. So I go and discover these people. That's all I do. And he said, I don't need the money to travel because I walk, I hitchhike, and those kind of people don't live in one direction or one city. Wherever I get the lift, I go there. I walk. And I always find people, 1 or 2 people in a day, to whom I talk and make them realize they're basically very wonderful people. So after that, I leave. And this woman said, what a wonderful idea, that somebody who believes in something and doing it. And she said, look, I'm married to a professor of philosophy, and my conflict with my husband is that he doesn't apply that philosophy, what he teaches to his students. And so that was her conflict. She said, I'm at the point of divorcing my husband, and she said, I would like to marry you. And this man said, madam, you are so kind, so generous, and so generous, you have offered me the biggest gift. You want to give me your life. My principle is, when I discover these people, I do not accept any gifts back. People offer me money, people offer me material objects, but I don't take anything. And you are offering me the biggest gift. I can't take it. Thank you very much, you bought me the meal. He gets up and leaves. So I had this image of the traveler, that one could actually just be a traveler doing something which one enjoys doing it. So after that event of this big show, I started to do different kind of work, which I'll show you just a few images so that we could wrap up. Next, please. This is just some pictures of the show which the Institute organized for me. Next, please. When the show is organized, a lot of school children come. There's all the kind of things happen in school. This school child who's actually drawing something out of inspiration. Next one, please. This is also one of the images of the show. This is again one of the images for shots for this show. Next one. Okay. This is where my second journey started to become doctor. What I was actually reading that time, and I'm still reading and discovering and exploring and thinking about it, some very big questions. I came across a book, it's called The Big Questions That You Hardly Get the Answers for. So I started to think about what was there before this universe was here, when it came into existence, how it came into existence, all kinds of questions, big questions start to come to my mind. And what was interesting that when you actually go beyond your immediate survival needs and owning the objects, that's the time to actually start to actually think in those kind of questions which normally they do not affect our life, because we live on this planet, a small planet in this galaxy, and we feel safe enough that we're on the planet where we live, and we're just concerned about the boundary of within our house or within the space. This planet is very tiny in the whole galaxy. You don't need to think about it. You don't need to even think that the galaxy itself is moving away and we may end up somewhere else. We don't need to think about all these things. We don't need to think about why this whole world is there, why human being is actually placed only on one planet, which is here. Where? So all these questions only come when you actually have dealt with all your questions of survival, and you have gone past your greed for ownership and possessions. So then you're actually dealing with totally different kind of issues. So this is just a few images to explore in that one. Please, next one. This is just some of the exercises in that. Next one. It's one of the installation I use sometimes to. Next one, please. I'm creating the installation. This is one of the galleries, which is because my idea was how the whole place, there was no light even, there was no concept of time at that time, when there was no universe. The idea of time came only with our planets in the universe. Because before that, how it felt like, I thought if I was there, or at least my imagination, my soul was there, how it would feel. So the journey is in that direction. Please, next one. There are a few images, they were shown several places. This is one of the palaces in Poland, which I also happened to be showing my work, and it was a very big contrast, which was actually the palace itself with golden ceilings and all the gilded ceilings and all these things. It was very epitome of the materialism. And I was showing something which I thought beyond the materialism. So it was a kind of contrast which I liked. That's why I show this image. Thank you. Next one. This is still continuing that idea. This is an exhibition in Denmark, in Copenhagen. Next one, please. Yeah, these are expressions. They come normally in huge, kind of large paperworks where you just phrase the blackness, that kind of feeling. If you can actually, if I could create that. It's not that I could create it, because, as Guru Nanak said, that thing is nirankar, or limitless, and no shape. So I'm trying to express something which is actually is nirankar, it's no akar. Next one. This is just expression of this. I will tell you a little bit more through the next image about this, because they are two related. This was an installation in Malmö. It's a city, southern Sweden, where I was invited, one of the 4 sculptors, to exhibit. And what I did was they had one storeroom which was like about 10 feet by 15 feet room, and one little door. When I went in the room, I said, yes, I want to transform this little, small space into limitless space. I was working on the idea of the limitless, which is actually anant in a good mind's words. And so what I did was, I painted the whole room, the ceiling, the floor, and the walls with deep blue color. And then I used one small spotlight. And when it happens like this, the room lost its space, the boundaries. And it felt like I was standing in the universe when there was no end to any space, which was a wonderful feeling. So then I took some material, it was basically sea salt, which I used to create this idea of the galaxy within that space. So it was enough. And that room, I created that installation and I walked away. So it's not something which I could carry with me or I could actually sell to anybody. It is something which I just created and I walk away. Thank you. Next one. Okay. Thank you very much. We'll come back to Chandigarh, and thank you for bearing with me.
Any question? Do you think all our questions are answered? I don't think so. I don't believe that. Sure.
Do you think that man is essentially a nomad who travels, who is essentially a traveler, and not really meant to settle down?
Yes, that's where the man started, because it was always until he discovered the serials. What I said at one time in history, there's a center, the Man Center in Canada. They actually asked the artists to do some work based on the idea of nomad. So that time I put little proposal, it was a form of poem saying, yes, nomads are not mads, they're nomads. They are sensible people, but somehow, they keep walking, they keep discovering, because there's such a curiosity. Because one thing you will find, people, those who have just enough energy to do their mundane things, because you need spare energy to be restless. So this is actually when somebody is restless, they want to discover, they want to find more. That's what's, that when my mother called me, that you got little circle under your foot, my right foot, that you will travel all day, all my life. That's my mother told me. And, I think that's lovely. It was a symbol of that I had the loose foot or the spare energy which I could actually leave my family and leave everything and I would go traveling. So it's very much what you said. Thank you. Let me explain you something that in India at this moment we are going through a period where frame of mind people is toward achievement. The whole thing, the education, is result oriented. Everything you want to achieve. When you talk to somebody, you are a student of art school, they said, yes, I passed out that year. They only talk about passing out. They don't talk about what they learned, how many years they spent. They don't talk about the process. The process is so important. And they only talk about what they gained out of all this. They got a piece of paper, they passed out. Actually, although it's a very wrong term they use, pass out means that they faint. But then, anyway, the idea is that this whole, because we are going through the period in our history, in Indian history, where everything is result oriented. They want to do the MBA, they want to achieve this, they want to buy the next house, they want to buy the next bigger car. We are going through that which the Europe went through 50 years ago. So in Europe now, they come to a kind of stability. They can afford to think about what to give to their citizens. Can they actually, on their way to work, can they put something that can just create little curiosity in their mind? Or can they think beyond their everyday work? So this is very much European luxury, you will say. Although in India it used to be like that before actually we went to Greek. Because why did we create Ajanta and Lola? If you didn't believe in this, that we want to give something beyond that. So that's what they get now. Because those Europeans, they are coming to a stage that there is something we need to give people beyond the material luxury. So that's not enough. So this is one way of doing it. And the process actually, when we work there, the schools bring their children to watch us, talk to us, and all that. So there is a process also which is involved in it. Thank you.
According to the physics, they say that the universe started with a big bang. And the galaxies, they are flying away from each other. And they say that nothing can move faster than light. And still they say that there are some galaxies from where light has still not reached the Earth. So how is it possible when nothing can move faster than light? How those galaxies, they are so far that light has still not reached from those galaxies?
Thank you, but no doubt my interest is there. And I can only comment only one thing. The artists, when they think about these things, they don't think in those terms that how fast the light travels, how fast it is. They think, they use their intuition. Right? As Democritus in 350 BC, he wrote the whole, almost the theory of atomic physics. And atom word actually means, in Greek, it's a smallest particle which cannot cut anymore. But he also wrote, said there is something, still there is some movement within those things. So he didn't have the lab, he didn't have the theory of Einstein's theory, he didn't have those theories. But he did it all by intuition. When Guru Nanak said in the 15th century that when he said it's not only like one galaxy, there's more, and 1,000 more, he used the intuition. So I would only deal with this question only as intuitive person, not as a scientist. So to this whole question, I think the only thing which I would say to you is that artists use the intuition to imagine that what is unimaginable. Okay. So I don't have the answer to this question. Thank you.